You're now tuned into another episode of JOCTOBER Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Smith. We got a very special guest on the show, a father figure, a businessman, a person I really look up to. If many of you don't know who I'm talking about the one and only Lucas Quinn. How you doing, bro?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Man, thank you for coming to the show, bro.
Yes, sir.
How's everything going?
Everything's good.
Yeah.
Everything's good. Just finished up a day of training and I'm happy to jump on this.
Yeah, absolutely. How's that going today? How was the training session?
Good. I had trained for the last several hours. A lot of different athletes, trained a basketball team as well. So it was a good day.
That was a good day. I always want to ask you, what is a regular day for Lucas? Like, how do you start the day off?
Yeah, so typically, I've got a training facility here in Westlake Village. This is what I do full time. I train athletes. And so I guess a typical day for me is I usually like to get my own workout in the morning before I start training. So I usually have athletes coming in at 5 or 5:30 or 6 a.m. in the morning. So I usually try to work out before 4:45 or 5 and get my workout in. And then I'll train from about 5:30 to about 9 or 10 a.m. Different athletes, different ages, different teams that I'll train in the morning. Right now I'm working with like 7 different high school programs: basketball, football, lacrosse. And then typically I'll go home for a little bit and then I'll come back and train from about 2 p.m. to about 9 p.m. Athletes. So that's kind of my daily schedule.
That's a tough schedule. You know, a lot of people always have an excuse about they can't do anything. And I remember we talked about this, how you have so much stuff going on and able to still have time for your kids and your family. How was that? Yeah,
that's hard definitely to try to balance, the demands that I have here, kind of trying to run my business and my training facility and kind of the demands of the actual hours training and then the administrative side of things and the back end side of things and the social media side of things. So it's a lot to manage, but me kind of being able to go home in the middle of the day is helpful because I'm able to be home for usually 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the day. So that's been really nice.
That's really nice. So you don't get too much sleep that much, huh?
No, because I usually train here until about 9 p.m. Then I usually wrap up and leave here like 9:30 and get home after that. So then I'm here again at 4:45 or 5. So, it's a grind, but I love it.
Yeah, see, that's the beauty of it. I always want to ask you too, because I know a lot of athletes talk about it, and personal trainers also talk about when do you think is the appropriate time for an athlete to start training, like as far as age-wise?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it depends, on if they're, emotionally ready to do it. But, I train athletes as young as 7 or 8 or 9. And that's a big, I think, misconception is in regards to, when an athlete should start lifting weights. And so that's actually, I think, a big misconception, especially in kind of, I guess it would be my parents' generation and older. They for some reason there's a misconception out there that it stunts growth, and weightlifting stunts growth. So what I do with athletes is I usually like to build a good foundation for just long-term athletic development. And so does that involve lifting weights? Yeah, it does, if they're ready to do it, if they're ready to handle the load. But as far as lifting weights stunting growth, there's been a lot of research on this area, particularly in the last 20 to 30 years. I mean, I'm talking academic peer-reviewed, studies on this from a wide range of different researchers who've studied this, and they've actually found in no instance and in no case has lifting weights stunted the growth of a developmental, person, pre-pubescent developmental athlete. So even though that's kind of a misconception, they've found no scientific evidence that it stunts growth plates, or anything like that. If it's done properly and with good supervision. So lifting weights, I think the earlier the better, because then you start to develop a good, strong athletic foundation to withstand, overuse injuries. Right now, club sports is so big that, by the time you're 13 or 14, you played, 200-300 games. And you play year round and you practice year round. So there's burnout is kind of, a big problem because these kids are getting burned out. So I think for me, bringing them into my training facility to develop them as an athlete and help their bodies withstand that load, training smart and lifting weights and developing resiliency and strength, I think is important. Especially given the research saying they actually recommend it. It used to be, hey, we don't recommend it because, then people would think it stunts growth. But actually the research says, hey, we actually recommend it because it can help them decrease their risk of injury and avoid overuse injuries and burnout. So I think as far as like an appropriate age, I wouldn't start lifting an athlete at 8 or 9 if they're not ready for it. I think 10, 11, 12 even, teaching them, the basic movement patterns, how to squat, how to do a hinge with an RDL, how to do lunges, how to do split squats, and how to do just different movement patterns, how to sprint, how to cut, how to land, how to jump, how to change direction, just building their movement repertoire just to be well-rounded as athletes. So, I think it's a certain age. It's like some people think, oh, you shouldn't lift weights till high school. It's jumping out of a tree as a 7 or 8 year old kid. You're going to withstand 200 or 300 pounds of force. 2 or 3 or 4 times your body weight. Jumping out of a tree, or playing soccer, playing football, or playing baseball, running, cutting, landing, jumping. Those forces are much higher than a 20-pound dumbbell goblet squat. So people that understand the physics of actually what's going on, they start to realize like that misconception of athletes lifting weights, youth athletes lifting weights is just ridiculous. So to me, looking at what the research says is really important.
I'm glad you said that too, because I always want to ask you about like the relationship you have with your clients. Like, how do you feel like that takes you farther? Like knowing your clients' weakness, things they need to work on, as far as technique and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. Is developing a training program that works for that athlete. Depending on their sport, their age, their deficiencies. Whether or not some of their goals are, hey, to get faster, or they need to get stronger, more explosive, or depending on their injury history. Even if I have a high school athlete who's coming in who is 9 months out of an ACL injury and they've been doing rehab for the last 9 months, or whether that's having a conversation with their physical therapist or kind of bridging the gap from rehab to training. So it just depends. Every athlete has a unique situation, and developing, like you said, that relationship of trust and kind of determining what type of plan would be best for that individual athlete moving forward based on their sport, their goals, their a whole host of things. But yeah, that's definitely really important.
I like that you said that too. A lot of people don't take that serious, the relationship with their clients.
Yeah.
And I always want to ask you this too. You used to train me at school. Many of you don't know he's a ex-football player, person who trained with the Cal Lou together. How was it transition from Cal Lou to being your own trainer? Like, who was someone you looked up to also? I'm pretty sure you're going to say Holmberg, right?
Yeah, no doubt. So I started this, so I played football at Cal Lou, and then I was a strength coach there at Cal Lutheran as soon as I graduated, I was hired on. So I did that for 4 years. They're definitely different. So, what I work in is like the private sector now. I have my own training facility, as opposed to the collegiate, sector. They're different. They're similar in a lot of ways, obviously, the exercise, a lot of the exercises and the programming, the science, it's all the same, but they're different in a lot of ways. Especially working with a team, in a collegiate setting, it's a lot different. The standards are different. The expectations are different. The limitations are different because, if you got to train 70 or 80 football players, it's different than coming in the private sector and me training, one-on-one with an athlete. It's just different. So the relationship is a little bit different. But a lot of the science and the principles are the same as far as just, providing high quality training. It's just delivered in a different way. And as far as, to your second point about, who's someone I've looked up to as far as strength and conditioning would be, a strength coach that we shared, at Cal Lou. His name is Dr. Holmberg. He's probably the smartest individual that I've ever met as far as strength and conditioning. So he's mentored me over the last, I trained under him as, for 4 years as an athlete there, as a football player there. And then I worked with him for 4+ years. So I was able to learn from him for at least 7 or 8 years, and just constantly asking the questions and having great conversations with him and learning from him. So that was, I think, really, really, really key for me in just my own development as a strength and conditioning coach and as a coach, and how to interact with athletes and training and programming and strategy, and just, so that would be, a big influence on, how I do things and how I operate. So
shout out to Holmberg too. I always see you progressing, like keep going up the ladder. I feel like this is just the beginning for you too.
Yeah.
Like, what is your mindset? Like, what keeps you going in life? Like, far as like progressing, getting better every day. The workouts and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I'm just trying to provide value as much as I can. In the best way that I can. Because to me, training athletes here at my facility, it's a business, but Also, just for me, I think long term, it's just how can I continue to provide value? How can I continue to provide a better product? Because it is a business and you have to sell it. And to me, selling it is how can I provide the best value to you as an athlete, as far as physically, as far as mentally, as far as referring out to people that, may know more about a certain subjects like nutrition, right? I'm not a nutritionist, but, having good relationship to provide value to my athletes. So I think that as far as the first part, but as far as your second question in terms of kind of where I see myself going, I think, it's just, I'm taking it one day at a time now, but I do have longer term goals, as far as what I want to do. But for me, it's just how can I provide value, each and every day.
And I'm glad you mentioned the nutrition part. Like, I always see you tell the athlete, make sure you get some protein. Like, for example, me, make sure you eat something. Like, how do you take that serious? Like, as far as treating the body and keeping the body going too?
Yeah. Recovery is key because I'll be with an athlete for 1 hour a day, right? So there's 23 other hours in a day that I'm not with them, I'm not controlling them. Training is just one part of it. What you put in your body and the amount of sleep that you get and your hydration and your nutrition and your recovery and your mobility and all that is extremely important, if not more important than the actual training. So that's something I'm constantly reminding my athletes to, make sure they're getting enough protein intake, making sure they're eating enough food. Typically, the high school athletes that I work with, they need to gain weight. So they need to get more calories. They need to be in what's called a caloric surplus. So you just got to eat more, but eating high quality foods, just giving a guidance where I can, just giving them reminders on, hey, we can do our training program, we can do our speed work, and we can do our strength. But how are you refueling? How are you repairing, your body? So a lot of that is nutrition and sleep. So, that's a big part of, I think just becoming a better athlete is, just taking care of your body.
Learned that a lot from you too.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's dope. So I always want to ask you about, like, as far as, like, I know you got a speed program going on. A lot of people may not know about, but I love the speed program you have. How is that going? Like, what are some things you can give people as far as, like, technique and the speed stuff like that? Yeah.
So speed, I love speed. I've always been interested in speed and how you get an athlete faster. And it's a big part of what I do with the athletes that I train is, and why a lot of people I think come to me is hey, I got to get faster. How do you get faster? And there used to be kind of a misconception too, is like, look, you can't teach speed. Well, I beg to differ because I see it all the time. Now, not everybody can be the fastest athlete in the world, but everybody can get faster is kind of what I like to say. So speed is a big part of what I do. Physically here with all the clients that I have here, but I also have an online speed training program that I developed all of last year, and I launched it last year, 2021. So that's been going really well. It's kind of like an 18-week training program, speed training program that can be done from anywhere. I have it's basically an extensive video library, and it's a program that takes you day by day, step by step, phase by phase on how to get faster. And it can be done from anywhere. Like I said, I filmed the entire program that could be done literally from anywhere, and it can be accessed on your phone. So it's just it's basically a short to long acceleration based program to work on acceleration as well as top end speed. But I've got 3 different levels. So if you're a youth athlete, if you're an 11-year-old baseball player that wants to get faster, it takes you through a science-based, legitimate, high quality, in my opinion, high quality training program to get faster. Or I have different levels where, if you're a college athlete who needs to improve their speed, it can be kind of scaled to different levels. So that's been going really well, and I put a lot of time into that, and the quality of that I think is really high. So that's been really going really well.
That's dope. I like that you said like you got all different type of sports. So for people that's watching, all they have to do is just go on your website and just download the app to their phone. They can watch it from there.
Yeah, exactly. Just go to my Instagram, and it's on my Instagram. It's called Speed Unleashed. So there's 3 different levels to it. And so, like I said, it takes you from how to warm up, how to get set up in your stance, how to learn a 3-point stance, to run a good 40 or a 60 or whatever the sport it is. It kind of is tailored to whatever sport the athlete is playing. But at the same time, speed is speed. Whether you're a basketball player, acceleration is very important. Baseball, acceleration is important. Lacrosse, soccer, football, track and field even. So it's a general speed program, but it can be scaled to different levels in different sports. So
I like that. I'm glad you mentioned that too. I see you got the gear on. Is that
yes, sir.
That's the clothing line you have too?
Yeah. So I love to get my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, my
it's clean, man.
Brand for me is really important. So just always having the right brand and the right look kind of fits kind of what I want to do. So yeah.
How's that going for like the brand and everything?
Yeah, I think it's going well. Yeah, I think it's important to just establish, myself as, not legitimate, but, well thought out and try to develop, a brand that can be recognized at least locally.
Absolutely.
And kind of build a little community here. So that's kind of my whole idea behind just branding, and because I don't do a lot of marketing. A lot of what I do is just word of mouth and referral based, but just having an identity I think is important.
Absolutely. And I always see like when I used to come to you in the morning, you'll have like just not athletes, you'll have like parents also. And how's that going? Like a lot of people just think you just like an athlete's trainer, but you train like all different type of people also too.
Yeah. So I primarily train athletes, but I think any training facility in the private sector, I don't think can survive on just athletes alone, because it depends on where you are. But I think you got to have what they call general population. So Gen Pop would be like kind of the term that sometimes you'll hear. And that's just regular everyday adults, just who want to, train and are into fitness and want to get in better shape. And so I typically only train, parents of athletes that I train. So I think that's kind of unique. But yeah, I'll have, a lot of parents come in the mornings and we get after it for sure.
That's dope. Do you still have time to get your workout in? Like,
I try to in the mornings. Yeah, I try to. Yeah.
That's pretty dope, man. I always see, you motivate me to do certain stuff, to keep me going in life. You're always busy, you keep the same mindset, you stay active, and I just love everything you got going on with yourself too. And I just want to accomplish you for that also too.
Appreciate that, brother.
Yes, sir. I had a few questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
A couple of game questions. What's your favorite meal prep for you? Like the go-to meal prep?
Meal? Wood Ranch barbecue, bro.
Oh,
100%.
Wood Ranch barbecue.
Some steaks, some tri-tip. Oh, that's my go-to.
Cook it up quick at this house.
No, literally Wood Ranch, the restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, it's a Wood Ranch restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
In T.O.
Yeah, so they've got one in Agora and Fort Park, and they're building one in T.O.
Oh, man. So you're a regular there, huh?
Oh, all the time. Yes, sir.
Okay. Top 3 defensive backs. I know you're a former defensive player. So.
No doubt. Deion Sanders, obviously, number 1. Probably the best to ever do it. Number 2, Darius Slay's, he's dope. I like Pat Peterson too. So those guys,
Okay, I like that.
And then I don't think that would be an all-time list. I think those were just my top 3 guys I like. I like Antonio Cromartie too. That dude was nice.
Yeah.
Really nice. Ed Reed is up there. That dude is
absolutely
unreal. I mean, when Tom Brady says you're the best safety he's ever seen, then that's the same.
That's respect. That is respect.
Ed Reed, Charles Woodson, obviously he's up there. I love watching those guys. I can watch their YouTube all day.
Oh yeah, just watch the clips and everything.
100%. Yeah.
Who's your favorite team?
Favorite team, Arkansas Razorbacks.
Oh man, the Arkansas. What about NFL?
See, I don't necessarily have a favorite NFL team because I grew up in Arkansas, so we didn't really have an NFL team. So I'm a big Razorback fan.
Right. Oh, you grew up in Arkansas?
Yes, sir.
I did not know that. That's dope. I mean, how was that like growing up in Arkansas?
It was good. I mean, it's all I knew, so it was great. I loved it, but I like California better.
Yeah, the weather.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I had dig the website up. So your favorite movie is between Black Hawk Down and Remember the Titans. What is your favorite one?
Yeah, I'm a big action guy.
Action. Yeah,
I love that. War movies, action movies. So Black Hawk Down is up there. Saving Private Ryan is up there.
I like that. That's dope. If you could be any animal in the world, what would you be and why?
It's a tough question.
Gotta pick your brain.
Tough question. You gotta look up a guy I look up to in strength and conditioning, PJF Performance.
PJF.
Yeah, really respect what he does and the quality of what he does, and he has a funny little thing that he likes to say. There's a certain squid in the ocean that I forget exactly what it is, but it basically is really smart at adapting and learning and changes its environment to how it adapts and learns. So he always says he calls everybody kind of who follows him his squid. So I think that's kind of funny. So I don't know. That's just what popped up.
No, I like that, bro. I told my mother,
squids,
I always learn something from you every day. Something unique, even a bigger word too. You always put me on game. I love that, man.
I got you.
I appreciate that. I used to watch you around. Oatmeal raisins. or Valley Crunch bars? Which one you like?
Oh man, I gotta get my snacks in, bro.
Yeah.
When I'm training all day long, I gotta eat something at some point.
Yeah.
No, I like those little snacks. Yeah, just granola bars, protein bars, just give me energy. Yeah.
That's why I'm like, I like this guy even more because we like the same kind of oatmeal bars.
Yes, sir.
Pretty dope, man. What is some advice you can give a person that's upcoming, like an upcoming trainer? Like, what can you tell them, like the steps, what to avoid, what to do, or just like have the mindset too?
Yeah, just get as much experience coaching anybody you possibly can, and give your all to whoever you're coaching. Not worry about who you want to try to coach or where you want to try to go. Just coach the person in front of you as hard as you possibly can, and give them all your energy and all your effort and provide value. And if you coach one person good, they're going to tell people. And so for me, it was always not, hey, who am I going to train next? It's like, no, I'm going to train the person who's coming to me, who wants me to train them, and I'm going to train them the best that I possibly can. And then number two, just learn as much as you can, because there's a lot of stuff out there, like online, on the internet, social media, that's just, it doesn't make sense in the real world. There's a lot of trash training that I see all over the place. So it's like, learn as much as you can and read actual books that are reputable and well-researched and well-respected, authors and other strength and conditioning coaches who've been doing it for a long time. Just learn as much as you can, because you can't substitute quality for anything else. You can't fake it. Like, if people realize that, and I think you'll build your repertoire as a coach and your experience as a coach by providing valuable, high-quality training. As opposed to doing stuff that just looks cool, or is what I call kind of just eyewash or eye candy or frivolous stuff that people that might look good, but then you never really do that if you're trying to actually improve someone as an athlete in their performance. I'm not going to be doing all these random, drills that might look cool, but aren't high quality, that are frivolous, that don't, make sense, So for me, my advice would be, get experience, coach anyone and everyone, provide value in every way that you can, give, high effort and energy, and enthusiasm, and then learn as much as you can. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
So then you'll know what not to do.
That too, yeah.
You'll learn, what is real and what isn't, and you'll learn what not to do, which I think is as important as learning, knowing what to do.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned, I want to go back to when you said about the trash training, because I always want to ask you, what are some things you see on the website, like social media, like these trainers are doing certain stuff that they won't do themselves, as far as when it comes to training? Yeah,
I think just to use speed as an example, I think it comes back to learning, the physics of speed and understanding, how to get an athlete faster. It's not doing a bunch of little cone and footwork drills or ladder drills or things like that, but actually understanding the physics that underpin acceleration and force production and, shin angles and body lead and posture and how to apply force and what angle you apply force, and how to manipulate the constraints to train an athlete, in a speed development, context. And understanding, what kind of goes into that. And it's not just, hey, let's do a banded high knee run, or let's do a ladder, or let's just, it's getting an athlete to understand, the mechanics of speed and taking them through a program that, develops their ability to produce force and getting them to understand the importance of force production, the angle of force production, and how quickly you can apply force to the ground, and then getting them stronger, and not getting too far away from strength, particularly with youth athletes. Yeah. And, being able to understand that strength often is going to be the best thing to develop a developing athlete. High quality strength training through full ranges of motion and not just trying to do too much, but sticking to the basics and the fundamentals and get really, really good at sprinting often and timing sprints and developing, or tracking progress and just getting really, really strong in a low quantity of high quality exercises.
Gotcha. I'm glad you mentioned that too. And I always want to ask you this: what's a go-to workout for Lucas? What's your go-to workout?
Yeah, so as far as speed, I love the hill sprints, incline sprints, to develop acceleration, develop front side knee lift, and using that kind of as a constraints-based model, meaning that would be an environmental constraint, putting someone on a hill to teach them what you want to teach them. Speed being kind of another example, Like my go-to for speed would be, incline sprints, resisted sprints, light loaded sprints, heavy loaded sprints, timed sprints, compete sprints with a partner, like in a team context. But just kind of manipulating all those different constraints for the outcome that I want, or for the intent that I want out of the athlete. So my go-to for speed would be, number one, you got to run fast to get fast. So you have to sprint consistently if you want to get fast. So it's not practice. It's not a game. It's dedicating time to actually sprint. And sprinting is sprinting, not just running, but sprinting. High quality, short duration, long rest periods for sprinting. So if you ask me what my go-to is, I'd say, number one, run fast to get fast. Number two, get an athlete on, a logical program that takes them through the different constraints to manipulate their velocity and try to improve their velocity overall, So like I mentioned, different drills, I guess it would be, incline sprints, time sprints, and resisted sprints. If you start there, that's probably a pretty good start.
Yeah, I definitely think, even with the one which used to have me go, oh man.
Yes, sir.
I used to feel the burn.
No doubt.
That was good workouts. I always want to say, how was it when you first, did your first training session, a new client? How was that? Did you feel any type of
Like when I first started, or with someone now?
Like when you started someone now.
Like when I start with someone now.
Yeah.
So I'll typically I like to set up kind of just a one-on-one, an evaluation or an assessment on where they're at, and just kind of see how they move, how they, and I'll just kind of do almost like an analysis, a biomechanical analysis of their movement patterns, and just kind of get an idea of their training history, their injury history, their age, their sport, and what their goals are, and then kind of see what their strengths and weaknesses are. Usually if they're a team sport athlete, I'll do an assessment on their sprint mechanics. I'll laser time their speed. I'll film their mechanics from different angles. I'll look at their acceleration mechanics, their top end speed mechanics. I'll kind of break that down frame by frame with them, using video. Set a baseline. I'll look at their force output with force plates that I have, and kind of build out a program based on what their immediate goals are, what their long-term goals are. Just kind of figure out what would be the best plan for them moving forward. So that's typically how I start, with an athlete, which I think is important. Assess, where they're at, what their goals are, and what we need to do to reach their goals based on, their movement patterns and kind of the sport that they play, and just all the things that I mentioned. Yeah,
that's dope. I appreciate that too.
Yes, sir.
Good knowledge always, man. Look, how can I ask you the question? Make sure I answer it right. What do you consider the best way for an athlete to be able to, they're not training with you, for us to go home and learn their bodies and work out and stretch? What do you consider athletes when they go home, as far as sleeping wise also?
As far as just on their own?
Yeah, it's on their own. If they on their own, for example, if I go home by myself and I'm just chilling, what do you expect me to do, as far as treating my body also? Yeah.
So number one, mobility is really big. Just being consistent with your mobility work. If that's something you need, I think people can go too far on the spectrum of, stretching and things like that. But I think if you're trying to stay fast and explosive as an athlete, number one, you got to sprint. So if you're on your own, it takes no equipment. You go find a hill and go sprint. That takes no equipment. So as far as not being able to do an elaborate strength training program because you don't have all the equipment, you could still sprint and you could still do mobility. So I think that would be a good start, and staying consistent with your speed work, which could be done with no equipment oftentimes. You don't need a bunch of bands and weights and sleds and all that. Just go sprint and do it consistently would be maybe my piece of advice for someone going home that doesn't have a lot of access to, a strength and conditioning coach or, a weight room even. That would be maybe my number one, piece of advice.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I noticed when I was coming up in high school, a lot of athletes just started lifting and just lifting weights. And now I see a lot of kids doing actual speed, resistance band stuff. Did you notice a big difference when you came up in high school and college until nowadays?
Yeah, for me personally, I didn't have any of this. I wasn't training like this when I was, in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, even in high school. I just didn't know about it. I didn't know, I didn't have anyone like me that was teaching me or showing me the way or showing me how to train or anything like that. So I wish I did, but I think now especially with club sports and how big it's gotten, I think athletes are training, earlier, which I think is good, but I think we got to be careful and not overwork some of these kids, that are like I said, playing 200, 300 games by the time they're 13 or 14 because they got a tournament every weekend, they're traveling every weekend, they've got practice, 2 to 3 times or 4 times a week with training on top of that. So I think we got to be careful in that aspect, but I think it is good in the sense of, athletes are getting exposed to some of this earlier, which I think is good, but I think the quality is more important. So focusing on just high quality training where athletes aren't going to be overtrained or overworked, which I think I see a lot. So just understanding, how to do it the right way, I think is important. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. You always answer the questions. Never got any bad information from you for sure. What is one more question before I let you go? I'm pretty busy. What can you say as far as like one of the obstacles you had to accomplish as far as like a personal trainer when you first started getting your feet wet, like in your own place?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think just kind of utilize what you have around you. So for me, it was, training athletes at literally different places all around. I would go to them. I would go to their house. I would go to the local park or whatever and just get creative. So that's kind of how I was able to get started with it. So I would say that would be, I guess my piece of advice would be just to kind of get creative and utilize the resources that you have and not worry about the resources that you don't have. So I think that would be a good piece of advice.
Yeah, definitely. And I was looking to ask you this earlier. I should have asked this earlier too. So you training, you got your own facility training. You train with several other high schools also?
Yeah, yep. A lot of different local high schools that are around me. They're football programs, basketball programs, lacrosse, soccer. That which is fun. Yeah.
And how is that like? Keeps you
doing no, it's good. Yeah, because it's the team setting is different than just the private setting even. So it's just different because I'm there to help to cultivate the culture of the team, and a lot of that is built in the off season with training because you're doing something hard together. So you're building accountability and discipline and commitment and leadership and all that, which I love all that too. So yeah.
I always admired. I just see you post Instagram. You always going to your athletes like games and stuff. Like, how do you feel about that? Because I feel like as an athlete, I would feel like happy to see my personal trainer that I've seen me working out or playing a game, actually, as I can say.
Yeah.
How does that feel to you?
No, I think that's great. And I love doing that. And I love going in because seeing them in their element, I think is important too, because it can provide insight into different than just seeing them in the, kind of a more controlled setting, but seeing them in their actual sport, I think is important just as far as me, like biomechanically or from a training perspective, hey, what can we do better? Or just supporting them, I think is important too. And it's fun and get to go and watch them in their element and see them compete, which is great. So I love doing that.
I like that because I was like, man, a lot of athletes or a lot of trainers don't do that. They go support their clients.
Yeah, I think it's big.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Make you feel motivated. Okay, he sees the flaws, so I need to work on it too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Is there any as far as like injury wise, what is the toughest injury you have to deal with like when you train one of your athletes?
Yeah, tough injuries obviously are the ACL. That's female athletes are 4 to 8 times more likely to tear their ACL than male athletes. So especially, like ages, for girls 14 to 18, it's a really bad one. They're such a high risk to tear their ACL or for a catastrophic knee injury. For a lot of different reasons, anatomically, physiologically, and a lot of different reasons, but that's a really, really tough one. I mean, it's a year-long injury, at least. A lot of athletes aren't the same after, it's a hard one mentally and physically. So that's a really tough one, although you can come back from it, So for me, I try to do a lot of, a big part of training female athletes at that age is, hey, what can we do to reduce their risk of an ACL injury? Strengthening their hamstrings, strengthening their hips and just getting them as strong as possible, as resilient as possible, even cutting and sprinting at high speeds with quality movement patterns and getting them just, I think, as strong as possible is going to be a big way to reduce that risk because you can't prevent injuries, but you can reduce risk. And then another one I think would be a hamstring injury is a really tough one, especially for older athletes that are performing at a high level, so that's why I'm really careful with how I dose my sprint work with them and my speed work with them, keeping in mind, slowly exposing the hamstring to higher velocities is a good way to build hamstring strength. but that's a bad injury for sure. Achilles injury is a bad one too. It can rupture Achilles. That one's tough, I think training is important to reduce risk of injury, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. For the people that want to find you, where can they find you? Like on social media?
Instagram and TikTok. Yeah, LQ_strength coach.
LQ_.
Yes, sir. LQ_strength coach.
Yeah, brother, I appreciate you for taking the time to come speak with me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
I know I've been trying to get you on the show for quite a while. You're a busy man. I just want to say thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you, bro. And this is LQ. This is JOCTOBER Podcast. Make sure you subscribe at the link below and see you on the next show.